Yes, this will be recorded, and we will be posting the slides on our website later on. So if you ever want to look back at it, then it'll be there. All right. With that all out of the way, let's get into it.
Okay, so let's just go over a quick roadmap of our presentation. First, we'll be going over who We Ascent Tutoring are. Then we'll talk about why you should start preparing now. Then we'll talk about standardized testing, focusing mainly on the SAT and ACT. Then we'll talk about course selection and whether you should be taking honors, AP, or IB classes. And then finally, we'll talk about extracurriculars and sports.
All right, so some key terms that you'll need to know throughout this presentation. One of the main ones is GPA, or your grade point average. So if you're a middle schooler, you probably have a GPA, a middle school GPA. Most middle schools have it, some don't. For those of you who don't know, a GPA, or a grade point average, is a number that basically assigns a value to each of the grades in your classes, and then adds them all up to give you your overall number. So sometimes it's out of 4.0, sometimes it's out of 5.0, sometimes out of 100. It really depends on your school. But what you have in middle school right now is an unweighted GPA. So that's just taking all your classes equally and then assigning a number value to each of them. But in high school, we introduced something new, and this is called the weighted GPA. So this GPA is like the unweighted GPA, except certain classes can give you more points than normal classes. These are AP courses, and we'll be going over these later on in the presentation. And finally, the final term you'll need to know is the College Board. This is the organization that, if there's one thing you'll hear high schoolers complaining about, it'll be this organization. The College Board runs pretty much every single extracurricular or standardized test that high schoolers have to take, most of them, in fact. So you'll be hearing a lot of them, and we recommend you to get familiar with them as you go into high school.
So who are we? So we are a group of high school juniors residing in the Bay Area, and we have an extremely varied high school experiences, as we've all taken many different classes and participated in different extracurriculars, and have overall had very different experiences in high school. However, one thing in common between all four of us is that we are very experienced with middle or high school tutoring, as we have both tutored peers our own age and those younger than us, with different things such as like their classes, their grades, or things like that.
So a lot of you might be wondering, why would you want to start preparing so soon, as a lot of you are probably middle schoolers or early high schoolers. And one term that I like to use a lot is front loading. So this is making sure that you get all the hard stuff done as early as possible so you can really enjoy later on. So we believe that front loading in 9th and 10th grade is the best way to really reduce workload in your hardest years of like 11th and 12th grade. So by preparing now, you're already setting yourself up for success in the future. And in general, it's always a good plan to do things early and plan early so you don't regret things you do, and you make sure that you really make the most out of your high school experience. So any questions about the introduction section or anything about us? You can always type it in the chat, or you can raise your hand in the chat feature and we can unmute you. Okay, that's it for now then. We'll move on.
Okay, now we'll be talking about standardized testing. Okay, first, so we'll be talking about the first two big tests that high schoolers take. These are the SAT and ACT. These are the two tests that keep high schoolers up at night, and we'll be talking about these in more detail.
So one really common test is the SAT. You've probably heard of this. A lot of students tend to take this. And this test can be taken all throughout high school, although most do take it from the end of 11th grade through the beginning of 12th grade. However, in the name of front loading, we recommend taking it in 10th and 11th grade. So the format of the test, most of it is multiple choice. You have a reading section, which is critical thinking, a writing section, a no calculator math section, and a calculator math section. And then the only non-multiple choice part of the test is the optional but recommended 50-minute essay. So in terms of math knowledge, the SAT requires Algebra 2 Trig and below for math knowledge. And you can register for this test through College Board 2 to 3 months prior to the date, and there are tests every month at different schools. So in general, it's always a good idea to make a College Board account as soon as the student enters high school, because as you'll see later on, College Board is used for a ton of different tests. So it's always a good idea.
Okay, so now on to the ACT. So the ACT is another test similar to the SAT, and it also can be taken all throughout high school. And like Charby said, although most students take it from the end of 11th grade to the beginning of 12th, to front load and to make sure that you can handle everything, we recommend the end of 10th grade to the beginning of 11th grade. So the ACT has 4 sections: 1 English section, 1 math section with calculator, 1 reading section, and 1 science section. And in the science section, there's no actual science knowledge that's required, but just critical thinking skills. And there's also writing tests, which many top colleges, such as the UC system, which many of you are familiar with, require this writing test, so we recommend taking it. And it requires up to Algebra 2 Trig math and some pre-calculus. And this is one of the few tests where you register through the ACT website. It's not part of the College Board. So make sure that if you plan to take this test, you make an account on act.org for that.
All right, so now you're probably wondering, well, if there are 2 big tests and I have to choose between one of them to take for high school, which one should I be taking? And that is a good question, but that's also one of the hardest to answer because there's no one best answer. You have to kind of look at what you will be most comfortable with and what you can achieve the best in. We've listed out here a few differences for the SAT and the ACT. For example, the SAT is slower, so you have more time per question. The questions tend to be longer, and there is no science section. And the ACT is the opposite. It's much faster. It has generally easier or questions that require a lot less thinking. And both are accepted by universities equally. So there's most universities will just accept SAT or ACT with no preference towards either one. And in order to determine which one you should be taking, this is a bit later on, but just keep this in mind. We recommend taking a diagnostic test. So taking a practice ACT and SAT, and to understand which one is best for you and which one you do better on, because that's really what you want at the end of the day. You want to submit the score to the colleges that you will do the best on.
Now we'll be talking about secondary tests. What are they and should you take them? Okay, one of the first secondary tests that you will take in high school is the PSAT, or the pre-SAT. This test is offered once a year in October, and students in 10th and 11th grade can take this test. In 11th grade, this test will be used for the National Merit Program. There's some more information on the slide there, but generally people take this test as a diagnostic to see which sections to work on for the real SAT.
Another type of secondary tests are the SAT subject tests, aka the SAT-2 or the SAT-1. So these tests are also done through College Board, like a lot of other tests. And you can take multiple of these tests on the same day, as they're only about an hour long. And these tests are held on the same day and the same centers or schools as the SAT. So one key difference between SAT subject tests and other SAT tests is that there's an extra 1/4 point penalty for getting a question wrong, which is not true for other tests. And why would you want to take these tests that are specialized in subjects? So for example, a really common thing that people do for colleges is that a lot of colleges, competitive and more selective ones, will require math 2 or at least 1 science test, such as physics, bio, or chemistry for a STEM major. For example, I'm planning on going into a STEM major in my college career, so I made sure to take the math 2 SAT and the chemistry SAT. And in terms of humanities and language subject tests, most colleges don't require these tests, but if you are really good at these subjects and you want to show proficiency beyond AP tests, which we'll be going over later, you can always take these tests to show mastery in those subjects, and it's always a good thing to have. And if you have a specific university or college in mind, you should always make sure to look up requirements on their admissions page to make sure that you're really taking the correct tests. And community colleges and CSUs, as well as a lot of state universities, do not require subject tests, but of course make sure to look up specific information on the college websites.
Okay, so now on to AP tests. So AP tests or advanced placement tests are also put through the College Board, and they're taken at the end of the year, generally early May, with a score given on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being the lowest score and 5 being the highest. So they take place at your school, and they're generally a few hours long, from 2 to 3 hours. And these tests have two sections, a free response section and a multiple choice section, with language AP classes having an extra section of recording to demonstrate fluency in the class. So the main reason for taking an AP test is that depending on your score, a majority of colleges will offer you credit to pass the class, to getting a good grade on the AP test, meaning that you can pass the class. And furthermore, it covers what you learn in the AP class. It provides a rigorous learning opportunity. It shows colleges that you are challenging yourself, and it opens up scholarship opportunities.
All right, so now we want to go over some basic testing tips, just a brief overview of things you should keep in mind for standardized testing in high school. So our first tip is get them done early. And this is really important. Like Chari mentioned, front loading is really important in 9th and 10th grade, because by putting your standardized tests and other pressurizing tests early on in your high school career, you have more time later on to focus on your courses and other things important like that. And so by spreading out your priorities over high school, you end up not just putting everything on 1 or 2 years, and you end up giving yourself a lot more time to study for these tests. Our second tip is don't overload yourself. And this is something we see really common with our peers. A lot of people will end up taking a lot of tests. Like for example, the College Board allows you to take up to 3 subject tests in a single sitting. And this is something we don't recommend. And the reason why is because overloading yourself by taking too many tests in a single sitting or in a single period of time is just, it's not a very good idea, because you end up stressing yourself out, and there's a lower chance that you will get a high score. And that's really what you want. You want a high score, and you can take it multiple times, but you should try to limit the amount of times you take it, because again, you want to minimize the cost of taking each test. The third tip you want to give is do not cram. And this applies to pretty much any test, but especially to the big two, like the SAT or the ACT. Because unlike most other school tests or like a math test or something else like that, the SAT and ACT don't test content knowledge. They test your skills. They test your critical thinking skills. And skills aren't something you can really cram for. You can't it's much more difficult to develop a skill over a single week rather than just cram a bunch of information into your brain. And so we highly, highly recommend starting like at least a month before in order to maximize how well you do on these tests. And the final tip you want to give is think about your strengths. So when deciding what test to take in high school, you have to think about what you're interested in and what you think you'll do best in. So let's say that I am interested in writing and I know that I'm a good writer. In that case, I would take something like maybe the SAT subject test for literature, or maybe the AP test for a language class, because I know that I can do well on them and I'm interested in those subjects. So you have to think about what you want to do and what you will be good at, because those are the main 2 things that will really help boost your college resume in the future. All right, now we're opening up to any questions. If you have a question, you can raise your hand. And you can do so by going into the participants section and there should be an option there to raise your own hand, or you can always type questions into the chat and we can answer them from there.
Okay, great. Someone's raising their hand.
Awesome.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, so I have this question. So I've heard that like a lot of high schools, they're stopping to give like SATs and ACTs. So do we really still have to worry about it? Because I feel like now high schools are taking more like they're trying to get rid of them more.
I see. I can answer this question. So I think what you're referring to is the test optional system that a lot of universities are going towards. And yeah, I understand that. And we all know that like a lot of colleges are planning to go test optional, meaning that they don't require the SAT or the ACT or any other standardized tests. But when it comes to these kind of colleges, it's still a really good idea if you're able to take these tests, because it really can help boost your resume, whether it's required or not. If you have a really, really high score in the SAT and ACT, it will be very, very helpful for your resume, even if the college does not require the standardized testing to be submitted. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I had
Alright.
one more question.
Awesome.
Also, real quick, just in general, a good rule of thumb is that colleges will be really flexible, especially in times of this pandemic. So don't worry too much if you can't take it. But like Murtaza said, if you can, it's always a good option.
Yeah, so I had one more question. Like, so let's say if I took both the ACT and the SAT, and let's say I messed up on one of the tests, would it really affect me if I did like really well on the SAT and I did really bad on the ACT?
No, it wouldn't affect you because you can pick one of the two to send to colleges. So suppose you do really bad on the ACT, like you said, you can just send in your really good SAT score, and that's what they'll look at. So you'll be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, someone else is raising their hand.
Awesome.
You're unmuted, so you can talk.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So is there a downside to taking tests multiple times? So I don't do well and I want to take it again to improve it.
There isn't a real downside to taking tests multiple times, because I think colleges, what they really also like to see is growth, because they know that not everyone's just going to nail it on their first try. But if you take it multiple times and you show that you're actually like working hard to improve your score and get better and all, that can be something very beneficial to colleges as well. It's not it's not necessarily bad to be taking it multiple times. And also there's something with tests that's often done called super scoring, which some colleges do. And that's when between all your testing attempts, colleges will take the best scores from each attempt and put them together to create an overall score, which is the best score out of all your attempts. So in reality, you could end up with a better score at some colleges than what you tested with due to this super scoring policy. Does that help?
Oh,
Right.
also,
Oh,
someone
go ahead.
asked a question that says, is there a way to compare ACT versus SAT scores? And as you guys might already know, the ACT is out of 36 and the SAT is out of 1600. So while there is no direct comparison, online they do have some comparison charts which show like the approximate range of SAT scores that correspond to an ACT score. So that way you can kind of see and compare two different scores.
All right. Someone else asked, is it recommended to take both the SAT and ACT? So this is a question a lot of people have, because it's logical to only think that if taking the SAT or the ACT is good, why can't I just take both and submit both these good scores? And the real answer to that is taking the SAT and ACT definitely, like submitting both scores isn't going to help you that much more than just submitting one score. And so for most students, because it takes so much time to study for both the SAT and ACT, overall it isn't worth to take both tests, because you end up studying a lot more and you end up committing a lot of time to doing so when the net benefit might not even be that great. And so we wouldn't really recommend taking both, but it's always an option to keep in mind.
However, if you're talking in terms of a diagnostic test, then yeah, it's probably a good idea to take both of them to just try and see which one you'll be better at. But once you take a diagnostic test, you should really pick a test and then focus in on it and try to do the best you can with that test. So, yes.
Okay, are there any more questions? Oh, someone raised their hand. Great. Yeah.
When is the right time to take diagnostic test?
When is the right time to take diagnostic tests? Well, generally speaking, by the end of your sophomore year, you should maybe take a diagnostic test at your local library or print one out online and take one, just so that you know and that you have the summer before your junior year to prepare. I know a lot of people, Charby included, did take their SAT and ACT in sophomore year, but most people do take their SAT and ACT junior year, so just having that summer to prepare is usually a good idea, and then you'll have more time in case you want to switch tests later on. So the summer after your sophomore year is generally a good time to take that diagnostic test.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions in chat or raising hands?
I think we're good. We
We
can move.
we can move
We're
on,
good?
I think.
All right. If you guys have any more questions about this later on, if you ever think of anything, you can ask them always at the end.
Or in chat.
Yes.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about course load and how to pick what courses you want to take, and specifically honors courses, AP, IB, and honors, and what are the differences between them. So what are the differences between honors, AP, and IB courses? Honors courses are generally a harder version of regular courses, but they're not a college level course, and they do contribute to weighted GPA, but there is no test for college credit. This is unlike AP courses where there is a test for college credit. And generally you take honors courses before AP courses. For example, I took chemistry honors before taking AP biology as a way to prepare for the AP course. So then AP courses are advanced placement courses, and these courses are usually followed by an end of the year exam by College Board or an end of the year project. For example, for AP Art, you would submit an art portfolio, and for AP Research, you'd submit an AP research project. These are subject-based, and you can get college credit for these courses, but usually that is based on your exam score rather than your grade in the class. They also do contribute to a weighted GPA, and you can self-study for the AP exams. IB courses are very similar to AP courses, but they're generally less common because your school will have to offer a full IB diploma system. And generally speaking, IB courses have more emphasis on writing and critical thinking than AP courses, and you cannot self-study these courses. Most schools either offer AP or IB, not both. This is because most schools, if they offer IB courses, they have to offer the full IB diploma system, so AP courses are generally more common. Honors courses are offered regardless, though. So, yeah.
So why would you want to take these advanced courses over normal baseline courses? So there are multiple reasons for this. One pretty obvious one is to challenge yourself. So by doing this, you can really learn more about yourself and your passions, and it's also like a lot more fun than normal courses. And there's also preparing for college and potentially skipping college classes, such as, for example, like Aryasha was talking about. By taking an AP class, you can take the test at the end of the year and get AP credit, which can save you quite a bit of money and time in college by not having to take very simple courses that you're not interested in. And you can also meet other people with similar interests in advanced courses. So this is one of my favorite parts of these classes because I find a lot of my friends in these classes that we share together and we really have like the same interests in. And you can also raise your weighted GPA like Aryasha also mentioned, and this also looks good for colleges in terms of weighted GPA.
Okay, so moving into the AP courses generally taken per year. So in freshman year, that's your lightest load as you're just getting adjusted to high school and everything. So generally people will take no AP courses, but some people choose to self-study or like just do the AP test on their own for AP Human Geography, AP Psychology, or an AP Language if they know about it. And in sophomore year, people take anywhere from no AP courses again to up to 2. And some people, once again, like AP World History or AP Computer Science A are some common courses taken. So it's a slightly heavier course load. Then junior year, we get into your heaviest course load. So this is when most people take anywhere from 2 to 5 APs. And you'll get harder APs such as AP Sciences or AP Calculus. And then finally, senior year, your course load slightly lightens, but it's still pretty heavy with classes such as AP Microeconomics or Macroeconomics, AP Literature, and AP Statistics being taken. So just some things that you should be aware is think carefully about all of the classes that have, and don't be afraid to take harder courses in your freshman and sophomore years or explore some things because junior and senior year, it gets harder, which is why we mentioned earlier the importance of front loading or taking your tests early. And you should also check in with your school as some schools have specific rules about taking the classes listed early, and you may need to take extra classes during the summer to catch up. So just as a model, in my freshman year, I took no AP classes at all. I just got adjusted to high school. And then also during my freshman year, since it was a very light course load, I chose to take honors chemistry outside of school online. So as a result, during my sophomore year, I was actually able to take AP chemistry early. So the only AP was AP chemistry. Then my junior year, this year, I'm taking 4 APs. I'm taking AP Calculus BC, AP Language and Composition, AP Spanish Language, and AP Computer Science A. And then next year, I'm taking 4 APs, AP Microeconomics, AP Statistics, AP Literature, and AP Environmental Science. So I know that maybe on the heavier side for junior year and senior year, but you should just be able to have a good balance and make sure you're taking them for the right reasons. Okay, any questions related to AP courses or honors courses or IB? Okay, yeah, someone raised their hand.
Rani asked, does ninth grade GPA count towards college admission? I know that the UC system, they only count a GPA from 10th to 11th grade, but most colleges do look at your ninth grade GPA.
Yeah.
And if you've taken classes that were needed for high school graduation in 8th grade, for example, like geometry, they will look at that grade as well. So any courses from ninth grade usually do count toward college admission, except in the UC system, where it's just 10th through 11th grade.
If you're interested in a specific college, you can also look that up.
Yeah, so then here, some people are raising their hand. Okay, Ananya, we can hear you.
So do some classes help you get into like the college you want more than other classes, like AP classes?
So AP classes are generally known as classes which are taken to challenge yourself or to show more rigor in your schedule. And especially if you're planning on taking, like for example, if you're going into pre-med, for example, a course like AP Biology would look really good because it shows that you're interested in biology, which is obviously important to medicine, and it shows that importance thing. Well, meanwhile, something like AP Literature, on the other hand, may not be as related to pre-med because you may not use it as much. So each AP course is dependent on your major. So just make sure that if you're interested in the AP course, then it'll probably help it, especially if it's interesting to your major.
Yeah,
Okay.
so showing areas of rigor and like areas that you're interested in will definitely help for colleges.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So another raised hand. Is it unmuting? Okay, there we go. There we go. We can hear you.
Yeah. So as you said, for like medicine and stuff, biology would work. What about like law? Because I'm like highly interested in law right now. Are there any like recommended subjects I should take?
So generally, when you're worried about stuff like law and like humanities-based majors, you want to consider a lot of writing-based courses because, as it turns out, a lot of these humanities, writing is one of the most important skills you can develop. So if you're really invested in going to law, we would probably recommend taking AP language courses, maybe AP literature, and maybe even U.S. history because it shows that you are well-rounded. But that doesn't mean that you should primarily focus on only those, because what colleges want to see is that you can handle a wide variety of topics. So taking something like an AP science or AP math also can show colleges that you have that critical thinking skills necessary for a career in law. Does that help?
Yeah. And also like,
Hello?
You can type it out in the chat if your
Yeah.
microphone's not working.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so, okay, so someone else is raising their hand. So I think we can hear you now, Shrika.
Yeah. So if the school doesn't offer the AP course that I want, what online options outside school do they have?
So specifically in California, if you're in California, the UC system offers this program called UC Scout, which is a way to get accredited courses there. They offer a lot of AP courses. I know they offer like AP Physics, AP Biology, AP English Language, a lot of courses like that. If you're interested in taking courses like just at a college level, you can go to your local community college local community college. And then if you want to just self-study the course and take the exam, there are resources online to do that. or like you can just get a prep book, or get a prep book, or you can audit the class at your own school, or but generally, if you think that, don't take AP courses just for the sake of taking AP courses. You should be taking courses because you're interested in them. And if your school does not offer an AP course, you won't be penalized by colleges for that. So like, say your school doesn't offer AP Human Geography, colleges aren't gonna be like, well, they didn't take AP Human Geography, we're not going to admit them. Colleges will base your admissions on what was available to you and what you took advantage of at your school and circumstances.
If you're not doing it for the colleges, though, and you're like really truly interested in taking the course, you can always reference the materials that Adiyasha was talking about. And there's another one I'd like to add called edX. That's pretty good for college level courses as well that are not necessarily APs.
And just one thing on the note of self-studying, make sure that if you're self-studying, you're really self-motivated, because self-studying requires you to, it's not like in an actual classroom with homework and all, it's just you sitting and learning all the concepts on your own. So just make sure that you really have the motivation to do that.
And just keep in mind that any outside courses, like if you decide to take from a community college or an outside organization, most likely it won't count for your GPA. So just keep that in mind.
Okay. So that's just usually used to prepare yourself for the exam, AP exam.
That's an option, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. So someone else is raising their hand. Okay, great.
So, how do you choose a major? I'm debating between like two majors that I'm highly interested in, law and medical. And what if you like change your mind in the end? Let's just say I take all the AP classes for medical, but then I'm like, actually, I really feel interested in law now. So how do you choose one and like stay set on it?
So like I mentioned before, there isn't any set path of APs you need to take for a major. What we recommend is taking a large variety of courses that are either AP or honors or normal courses. So you can get a gist of all the different, so you can basically explore your interests, right? So let's say you're interested in both the medical field and you're interested in law. Well, then I'd recommend you take law as a class, but you also take maybe advanced science courses like AP Chemistry or AP Bio. So we want you to just diversify your options. Make sure that you don't just invest all of your time into one single type of course, because really colleges and it'll be better for both college and yourself if you just take a wide variety.
Also, to add on to that, it might seem that like a lot of people have like their lives together and know exactly what they want to do in the future, but in reality, this is really not the case. And colleges don't really expect you to know exactly what you want to do like straight into high school. So really don't worry if you change your mind at the last minute. There are always options to switch majors in college. So like even if you get into a college for like on pre-med or something, and then all of a sudden you decide you want to go into law, that's totally possible. So just make sure you're doing wide range of things that like you have interest in, and then eventually it'll come to you. Like it's not going to be like a quick revelation, like it'll come slowly. So don't worry about it too much.
Yeah, and actually our next section is on extracurriculars, I believe. So we can discuss a little bit about exploring extracurriculars and all, and how you can help choose your major through that. So someone else is raising their hand. There. Okay, yeah.
Mine glitched out earlier. So what if you're like school, like in 8th grade, they don't provide like extra courses? Like as you mentioned before, for something about 8th grade?
So 8th graders, I wouldn't be like too concerned about taking AP courses yet, because these are like college level courses and they're extremely challenging. So I think as an 8th grader, you don't need to take any. If you really are interested in enrichment though, as an 8th grader, and learning more about, like, I think you mentioned that you're interested in law.
Yeah.
So there are you can look up online courses about law. You can just educate yourself generally about what someone in law might, like you can look at like some universities or like just generally what a person in law might do in high school. And you can plan to go on that path also and take those courses.
Oh,
also,
okay.
Something really interesting that I saw is that a lot of colleges have opened up some online courses for free in the time of like self-isolation. So I think I saw that Harvard has an online course on some sort of law. So if you're really interested in that, you can always take a look at those online courses and really try to like enrich yourself on those topics. That's a good option.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
no problem. Okay, so are there any more questions related to AP courses or anything? Or is everyone ready to? Oh, someone raise your hand. Okay. If there are no more, I think we can move on.
All right.
Type them in the chat if it comes to you later, but we'll move on for.
Yeah. All right, so now we're going to be going over extracurriculars and sports. We shorten extracurriculars to ECs for simplicity's sake. All right, so what exactly are these extracurriculars and sports? So they're usually out-of-school activities or sports that are mostly or partly student-run. And this is a major difference from any extracurriculars or sports that you might have done in middle school. From our experience, middle school sports and extracurriculars have always been always had a large emphasis on the teacher portion. So there's a little bit of student leadership, but a lot of it has to do with the teacher. In high school, this changes a bit because now a lot of it's more and more important to be the emphasis on the club is put upon the students. So the student leadership is the one that does most of the activities for the club or the sport. So these take place usually during after school or during in-school break times, like at lunch. They can even take place before school, depending on what activity it is. And some of them have requirements. And what this means is that essentially this could have tryouts, or you need to be taking certain classes to be a part of the activity. For example, I'm part of FBLA, or Future Business Leaders of America. And this activity, in order to participate as a high schooler, you need to be taking a law class or a class that gives you similar credit. And in addition, for most high school sports, they do require tryouts. And so you'll need to do those before you can be counted as part of the team. But extracurriculars don't actually have to be just things that are sponsored by the school. They can be pretty much anything you do out of school. For example, if you work part-time at, let's say, a fast food joint, that can count as an extracurricular. You're gaining skills, and you're gaining skills in the workforce, and you're learning a lot from it. And so extracurriculars can pretty much be anything you're doing out of school, and not just school-sponsored activities.
So here we have a list of some activities that the four of us have done. And these are also some pretty like typical activities that you can expect from a lot of high schools and things that a lot of people do outside of high school. For example, sponsored by the high school are sports such as marching band or badminton, and clubs such as like service clubs such as Interact, Key Club, NHS, National Honor Society, Red Cross, things like that. And there are also things that you could do outside of school sponsored things such as research or summer programs, which we'll be talking about a little later. And like youth orchestras, honor bands, being part of a nonprofit or tutoring people, that can also be a really valid extracurricular. So keep these in mind. Also, if you have any questions about any of these extracurriculars or anything else, we can always try to answer them because we have experience in these.
Okay, so leadership. So leadership is one of the most beneficial things about joining, about being in extracurriculars. And it just means having a special position or role in a club or sport. So like a team captain of a sport, or president, treasurer of a club. And the process is different for every club, but generally it'll be decided through interviews or a club election or a teacher recommendation. So having a leadership position is a large commitment because it gives you increased responsibilities as part of the club, but it's well worth it for college because it shows that you're devoted to the club and you're putting in dedication to it. And also self-betterment because it helps you learn more about yourself and like build leadership skills. And then the other thing to do is you can also start a club, which is a great way to show your own interests and share them with others. However, this can be difficult to do in competitive schools at times because the club might already exist and it requires a lot of commitment, but it's still a very good thing to do in these schools. So it also shows a lot of commitment and things like that. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about summer. I know a lot of you have probably heard about how summer is so important and how you have to maximize your summers, but what should you actually be doing during the summer? Well, the summer is an opportunity for you to get ahead and set yourself up for success during the school year. So the summer is a great time to get started early on courses or doing stuff that you're interested. So what should you actually be doing during the summer? There's no single answer for this, but generally try to find something that fits your interests and your future goals. For example, for some of you who want to go into law, you could try to find an internship at a local DA's office or work in a local government office or something like that. For those of you interested in STEM, you could try to get a research position at a lab by reaching out to professors and stuff. You could also do job shadowing. There's also summer programs at colleges that you could participate in, and there's a wide range of these. There's some for sports, some for STEM related, some to take courses at the colleges, and you can also just take courses for credit at a community college or local high school. Sometimes local high schools do offer courses for credit during the summer, or you could volunteer at nonprofits or organizations. And the summer is a really great time to get started on test prep for tests such as the ACT and SAT.
So, what factors should you consider before joining these clubs or having these extracurriculars? So obviously there's time. So will you be able to balance all your classes and your schoolwork, which should be your priority, especially during high school, with the activities you're doing? So there's that. And there's also interest. So is this something that you could see yourself doing for many more years? So of course you shouldn't only be doing clubs and extracurriculars so they'll look good for colleges. The main reason you should be doing these things is for you and yourself and your interests and to really explore your passions. So unless you can really see yourself doing it, then you shouldn't really, not unless you can actually commit to it and like be interested in it, then you shouldn't really be doing it for a prolonged amount of time. And of course there's impact. So how much will you really put into this club, such as like leadership positions and time commitment, and how much will you get out of it in terms of betterment and experience? So for example, when I was in 9th and 10th grade, I didn't really have that much schoolwork to do. So I joined like a ton of random clubs, and I do recommend doing this because it's like a great way to like explore your interests. So like towards the end of 10th grade and in 11th grade, I realized that a lot of these clubs I wasn't really interested in, so I quit some of them. And for the ones that I did end up continuing, I put in a lot of time and effort into them, and they really turned out to be things that really impacted me and I really got a lot out of. So these are factors that you should consider before and after joining a club.
Okay, so now let's just go over some general tips for extracurriculars. Especially at the beginning of high school, as Charvi was saying, it's really try to expand your interests and explore new interests and try to figure out what you actually want to do in high school. So don't be afraid to try new activities or explore new subjects. But after you've finished exploring and trying to figure out what you want to do, try to commit to those extracurriculars for a while, right? So by the mid-year of your sophomore year, try to commit to an extracurricular, because 3 to 4 years looks a lot better on your application compared to 1 to 2 years, and being committed to a club for a longer period of time helps for leadership. For example, I've been in National Science Honor Society for 4 years, and because of that, I was able to work with old officers and gain a leadership position because of that. That brings me to my next topic. You should be connecting with people from all grade levels in the activity, because the more you get to know the people in your activity, the more enjoyable it will be, and the easier it will be to get a leadership position later in like your time in the activity. So it's a really good idea to connect with the people in your activity. Okay, any questions?
We'll go back to the
Raise your hand.
what we've done slide, so you can
You can
us
ask us any questions about these activities.
Or just anything in general about extracurriculars or leadership. So, someone asked, how hard is it to start a club? So, again, this is really subjective as to what kind of club you want to start. So, I know, Karthik, you started a club. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So I started a club where I bring in people working in tech, because we live in the Bay Area, to come and talk to students about their experiences in the workforce and all. So I think the main rationale behind my club was I saw there was a missing thing. There wasn't really any career connections clubs at my school. So as a result, I just decided to go and create one for that reason. And it was like, you have to fill out paperwork and all, and we have people there and all. So that was my experience starting it. It was worth it, I think. But just a lot of work, which you have to be aware of.
Mm-hmm. Also, a good tip for starting clubs is to start towards the beginning of the year, because I know a lot of schools have like club fairs or club days, and you can always advertise your club on those days, so to like really spread it. So that's always a good time to start a club.
Okay, someone's raising their hand. Okay.
So I'm team captain of my middle school basketball team, but our coach doesn't like keep track of it or record it. How will this like benefit me? Like I'm gonna continue it on in my high school. So my school goes from 7th through 12th grade, so it's like combined. And I know it's the same coach and stuff, but she doesn't keep track of middle school teams. So I will this benefit me?
Like benefit you in terms of the college application or just in general?
Like for college applications or like just both?
Well, so you're showing commitment from, you said you were in 7th grade, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you're showing commitment, and if you plan to continue it throughout your entire high school experience, then that's a lot of commitment. That's like 6 years of basketball. So obviously that's going to look great on your college application. And with your experience as team captain, you can really carry that onwards and maybe even get a leadership position as captain later on in your high school career. So that'll also look really good for the college application, and it'll be better for yourself. So I think what you're doing right now is good, and it will help you.
Also, so my teacher suggested me to start like a debate club and stuff, but I'm afraid I won't get like enough people to join and like no one will join. Is there a way to like get that fear out or a way to like attract people to your club?
Yeah, so I think it's natural that to be afraid that like people won't join or things like that, because it's obviously a legitimate concern. But I think it's always worth just starting a club, because like first of all, you never know. And to avoid that happening, I think first one thing you could do is recruit your friends. Like I know in my club, my friends really supported me and come to my meetings and all. And that's something that really helped me, because then I had actual people coming to my meetings and all, and that soon hopefully will attract other people to start coming and all, and that they spread the word and all. So first, utilize your friends, and also just also I don't know, our school offers events where we, especially for incoming freshmen, or we advertise the clubs that are offered at our school. So see if your school has anything.
Yeah, they did this year.
Okay, yeah. So then if you have something like that, then just advertise your club there, and then advertise like benefits of joining your debate club and all. And then I also know you were deciding between like law and pre-med. So this could be a great way of helping you decide whether law is interesting to you through this club. So that's another benefit for starting it for you.
Thank you.
No worries.
And debate clubs tend to be pretty popular too, so I don't think you should have too much trouble getting people to join it. But yeah, those are some good tips from Karthik.
Okay, wait. Caroline Schiffer asked, how hard is it to start a club? It's just it's just like a pretty good amount of paperwork, honestly. You just have to like fill out some forms and make sure they get to the right people at the right time. And just do whatever the instructions are. I know it varies between schools. Just make sure to do whatever your school requires. Yeah.
Yep. Are you all belong to the same school? 3 of us go to the same school, and then 1 of us goes to another school. So.
Yeah, I go to a different school than.
But we're all part of the same school district, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I have another question that I just thought of.
Yeah.
I've heard that colleges look for a lot of achievements, and I want to grow my list. What are some achievements that would like help me?
There's a lot out there. I mean, like, there's a lot of competitions that you could enter. So, like, if you're interested in doing science, there's like international science competitions. If you're doing debate, you can enter debate league. You can enter debate leagues and compete there and try to win awards. You could enter writing competitions. There's a lot of stuff. Just do your research is my best answer. I think if you do research about what you want to do and what kind of competitions you want to participate in, you'll find some things that you can build your list with.
But adding on to that, if you do things only for colleges, that's really easy to see through. So colleges will know that. So you should really only be doing things you're interested in. And then by doing that, the colleges will see. And then that's really the best type of achievement you can put on your college application.
Okay, so Zara K asked, for the 4 to 5 things that colleges look for in an application, how should you structure your college application? Is there a list out there? Yes, there are lists out there. We will be posting a list of resources on our website later on, but generally colleges look at your GPA, which is your grade, your grade average, extracurriculars, and scores on things like your SATs and SAT subject test and ACT and AP test. So generally, and there is also an essay portion, a personal essay portion on your college application. So the colleges will give you like a structure, like it'll be like an online form that you fill out, like here you put your courses in, your GPA, test scores, then here are your essays. So you don't really have to worry about that in terms of structure. But if you're looking for like a way to structure your essays and how to build your own spike and stuff, there are resources out there, and we will be creating a resource list and posting that on our website at a later date. So stay tuned for that.
Mm-hmm. There are also a lot of helpful YouTube videos and websites out there that you can take a look at, and these will have a lot of information about like specifics about how to write a college essay or like how to create a spike, like Adiyasha was saying, so you could always check those out.
Okay, David asked a question.
All right, so someone asked, is it better to get challenging courses or to do challenging courses and get lower grades, or is it better to do easier courses and get better grades? So in general, we want you to, when colleges look at your application, yes, they'll be looking at how much you challenge yourself, but they'll also be looking at your GPA. So ideally, you would be taking difficult courses and getting a higher score. But if you aren't able to, if you don't think you have the capability to get that A in an AP course, then it's completely fine to take an honors or even a regular course and get an A and guarantee that you get an A in that as well. Because remember, there are different types of GPAs that the colleges look at. You look at your weighted GPA, which includes the honors and AP courses and all that, but they also look at your unweighted GPA, and that's often the one that colleges look at more. The unweighted GPA doesn't account for AP courses or honor courses or stuff like that. It just accounts for your raw grades. And so if you really don't think you'll be able to do well in a challenging course, then we recommend that you take an easier course. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't challenge yourself. Colleges love it when you go outside your comfort zone and try something new.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to take challenging courses, because colleges also look at your improvement over your years of high school. So say you didn't do so well in like 9th grade or 10th grade or something, showing improvement and showing that you keep studying and you keep going at it is really what they look at as well, because that shows that you are willing to work for your grades and that you're not just, these aren't just easy A's for you. For example, sometimes students who get all A's in high school, they burn out in college. So recently colleges have been looking at like students who improve over their years of high school or show that continued level of like achievement. Okay, so don't be too like freaked out about taking an advanced course, because you can always look for resources and ask your teachers for help or talk to tutors. And so challenge yourself to an extent, to a level that you are comfortable with.
Like in general, getting all A's is not the only way to show that you're working really hard and that you are really invested in your academics. I think it's really nice to, even if you get like a couple of B's, to really show people that you are like really challenging yourself and pushing yourself. So I think it's a balance that you have to find, but I think in general you should just do things that really interested you, and then you put as much effort in it as possible.
Okay, so here, Devika's raising her hand.
So I've heard by like a friend, she said that like in your college application, you have to include like your personal life, like your challenges that you've faced in your life. Is that true?
Generally, you don't have to be like, oh, when I was like, I broke my arm or something. No, colleges are looking to see that you were able to take advantage of what opportunities were provided to you and what opportunities you sought out. So you don't have to be too worried about just like, oh, well, I haven't done anything like super important in my life or something like that, right? So colleges so generally you want to show that what you've learned over your years of high school and how you've grown as a student and as an individual. So yeah, so show that growth. It's like the challenges you face is one way to put it, but generally that's sort of a cliche essay topic when you get to it. I think you are in middle school or early high school right now, so you may not really have to start thinking about that essay quite yet, but just keep that in mind for later on.
And colleges don't want sob stories like prior to popular belief, so just make sure that whatever you're writing is really like truthful, and there's no need to like dramatize like a challenge you've had in your life. You should really be talking about who you are as a person instead of like bad things that have happened to you. So that's something to keep in mind for later on. But like Aryasha said, that's not really something you have to worry about quite as much right now.
Yeah.
And you have to understand that colleges aren't just looking at. So colleges aren't just looking at what's up here; they're also looking at what's in here. So they're also looking towards the content of your character, not just how intelligent you are. And this, and like I think both Yasha and Chari mentioned, when it comes to your college essay, colleges are looking for you to show specific traits that they want to see. They want to see people overcoming challenges. You were right that. Overcoming challenges is a good trait to have, but they also want to see there are also a lot of other traits that are really good to have. If you're passionate towards something, if you've been kind and you volunteer a lot, there are a lot of other different positive traits that you can show throughout your college application. And so don't just you don't need to be worried if like you haven't faced any extreme difficulties and you want to write about that. There are a lot of other things you could talk about.
Okay.
Does anyone have any more questions?
Wait, Ananya has
Oh, you have a question?
raised her hand. There.
Okay, so should you write like I like break either my hand or leg almost like every 2 months, and if I do like write something like that, wouldn't colleges take in mind that I'm clumsy?
Oh, colleges aren't they're not really looking for that kind of aspect. Like I know someone who's like fallen off his mountain bike like 15 times and like smashed his nose, and colleges aren't really caring about that. But you could write about a specific experience that you had. Maybe like I know one guy who was really into mountain biking and what he grew like from that experience and from that activity. So maybe focus on what you've learned, not what's happened to you.
Yeah.
Think about you as an individual rather than your circumstances. So your circumstances may have like they affect you as an individual, but talk about how you as an individual were able to grow and succeed just in spite of those. Or don't focus on your circumstances, talk about yourself as an individual rather than, oh, I broke my arm like 15 times. This is that's not really what colleges want to hear. They want to hear about you.
Yeah, like breaking your arms and legs really doesn't say that much about you as a person. So if you do talk about that, make sure to actually talk about something like deeper about like your motivations as a person. So, yeah.
Okay, I'll try to include like basketball and all of that.
Yeah. Focus on like
You'll get more experiences before you write your essay, so don't worry about that yet.
That's true. You have a lot of time.
You have a lot of time. Don't worry about it at all. Okay, any other questions, raised hands about anything related to extracurriculars? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're done.
So let's see.
Okay, so that's it for the presentation. Thank you for attending. If you have any general questions about the whole presentation, then you can raise your hand or feel free to type it in the chat. But other than that, we also have an email, tutoring by Ascent at tutoringbyscent@gmail.com, and we have an Instagram and Facebook at Tutoring by Ascent, and our website right there. And we'll also be posting a link to it. And we also have sent out a post-attendee survey for the slideshow and the webinar, and we'd really appreciate if you could fill it out, and it's feedback towards us. And we're also setting up a mentor/counseling program for basically middle schoolers and early high schoolers about like literally anything like SATs or ACTs, standardized testing, just help, just like someone to talk to about high school. So if you're interested in that, make sure to fill out the form and we'll be sending out information soon. And yeah, that's basically it. If you have any questions, we'll be hanging around for a little bit and you can type them in. So that's it. We'll
One
be
thing,
sending the form out soon.
here, I put the form. This
Yes.
form is in the chat. So if you click on the link, you'll be taken to the post-webinar form, which you can fill out. And we'll also be sending an email afterwards. So that's it. Thank you for attending.
If you have any general questions, you can ask them now. It doesn't even have to be about like academically related. It could be any part of our high school experience. Or if you want something specifically about something specific that we did, you can also ask about that.
Yes.
I'll go back to the list of extracurriculars you did in case, just as a reference.